Got some rainy weather. Woo! Reminds me of Costa Rica. You're just coming out of the rainy season, huh?
Yeah. We just came out of the rainy season. It's always hot, but this was a lot of rain, which water is so expensive in Costa Rica, and I have a pretty big property here that requires a lot of water. So I was grateful for the rain. Plus, it cools everything down. Right. In fact, you know what? I forgot you're in Miami. I have to come to Miami. I don't know about like early Jan, maybe a little later in Jan, but I got to make a trip over there and see you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Absolutely. We were talking about seasons. We were talking about sort of the adjustments that people have made from before COVID to end of 2019, first quarter, really, because March 14th is really when COVID started in the US. So that first quarter was going pretty good. Then COVID, survival, 2020, 21 ish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then 22, like people really, trying to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're moving into 23. We've got, basically a month. So we wanted to talk about what does it look like in terms of your plan for 2023? What kind of adjustments did you make? Are you making the right adjustments?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what's your objective?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been, I'm going to say a couple months, right? And I sort of, I've become clear. For a couple months. I've sort of been a little hazy, and I think I was sharing that there was a lot of like conflict that happened over the last couple of weeks, and I realized the change that like had to go through, and got us talking. So like, let's go. So 2019, everything's nice. Everything's going. Things are moving. And I think it's business as normal. And then all of a sudden we go through 2020, which is like the first igniter of like massive change, right? In fact, that's the thing that stressed us out the most, right? So that was an interesting year, right? I think just adapting, and the word pivoting became like the number one word
I think
for
it was so, to what hits me is survival first,
correct.
both from a health standpoint, because I had to deal with that, and then a business standpoint.
Right.
Then pivoting comes after like dealing with survival. And
Yeah,
some
I
people had
agree.
like Zoom, I guess Zoom, they went through a Zoom boom, but for
Yeah.
most people,
Yeah. Well, everything came to a screaming halt. I mean, except things like, call it accounting and legal and banks and stuff like that. But, all business came to a screaming halt. The other side, I think if you were on more on the tech side, I think you're okay. But yeah, there was this immediate sort of survive. What am I going to do? How are we going to sort of move on? And the pivoting was, I think, contributed to people not surviving, but becoming successful, business driving and succeeding. Right. Anyway, it was a shite year for us. It was just hang on and make sure that we can do. I remember those days we were doing everything for free. The training was free. We had free Friday training, coffee Wednesdays. It was just free, free, free. Because like we're like, look, we might as well do it, and it was that kind of sort of come together.
yeah,
That brought an interesting year, which was like if you figured out in my industry training how to do it really well through Zoom, it gave a lot of access. But 2021 was this extraordinary sort of growth, like this amazing year, right? Another change, right? I think you also did really well and were doing and still are. But there was a big shift in growth for you in 2021.
yeah, totally. So it's interesting again when you think about it because I never really until just now really thought about slicing it up.
Mm-hmm.
So survival is definitely a category, and the
Mm-hmm.
mindset has got to be there to survive. And like I said, it's health and also business and
Right.
stress for family because now
Right.
you have you know two breadwinners that are maybe at work that
Mm-hmm.
and kids home. We both had that, so it was pretty epic and it was global. I think that also is something that we forget. Like it was the first time that was ever besides terrorism, which is
Right.
global.
Right.
This is right around the whole world
Yeah. This was a
um,
threat to everything and anything.
for everybody. And then you're right, we pivoted. So for me, I was able to add a new business, which was the LinkedIn business. And
Mm-hmm.
then for you, which we're doing most of the stuff all your, I mean, you weren't doing anything hybrid. Everything was
No, it
in-person
was all
training.
virtual, and we scaled because all of a sudden people didn't have to travel for the programs and training. You know, all of a sudden the learning, the delivery was accessible, and at a reduced rate. We had clients that used to have to come from Europe. I remember doing conferences in Europe with some clients. I'm like, shit, man, they must be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, just on flights. Flying 60 people, 80 people, 100 people, hotels, transportation, massive amount of money. Now you get that same, call it learning, without that expense. So I think that's where corporate leaned into the virtual,
Well,
right?
let me ask you a question though, because this is something that I think this comes from two parts: from the educator's perspective
Mm-hmm.
and the learner's perspective. So, from the educator's perspective, there's one component that said, okay, well, this is easier and less
Mm-hmm.
expense, and I can scale.
Mm-hmm.
But from the other perspective, in terms of producing an outcome,
Mm-hmm.
I think now you're in a real position to say, okay, we used to do it 100% this way. Then we
Mm-hmm.
were forced to do it 100% this way.
Mm-hmm.
And now we just went through some period of time that was kind of blended with half the people live and or a quarter of the people live and three-quarters of people not showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about from
But
a
let's just go back to
learner's
something. It
view.
was actually more expensive and more difficult for us to do virtual. I think that the perception is, oh, you get to sit there and just stand in front of a microphone and talk. It was almost 10 times more energy you had to put in, right? So if you were tired standing in front of a room of live people because you had to kind of like get that energy going, it was even more because you don't have that room, right? So you had to translate that through the screen. There was more expense because now we start to take on an experiential side of things, which is, okay, if we're teaching through virtual, then what can we do to create a physical thing for them, right? We created these experience boxes, right? Facilitators had to be retrained. Gear had to be bought. I mean, I thought we had video production gear before. I've got a fucking studio, right? In fact, I got
Yeah,
two of them, right? Because it's
yeah.
it's that kind of thing. But yeah, so now and then it goes into the hybrid, which I think hybrid's going to be a necessary evil, but I think we're going to find that it's going to go one way versus the other. I think in my experience, my opinion, I would say hybrid is not going to be a lasting exercise. I think it's
So
going to what
let me ask you a question here. Let's take the customer out of it. Let's pretend like the customer doesn't have a say.
right.
Their only job is to make their employees better. So that's their only job. They don't have a say,
Hmm.
but you have a say.
Hmm.
And so I'm posing the question to you. You have a say. Okay, how will you and your team produce breakthroughs for individuals? Is it what's the best solution? Is it in person,
Hmm.
hybrid, or
Hmm.
virtual?
Okay. Live, I think it's a combination, but I think it's beginning live. I think there's that nothing will replace being with people in front of that room, working. So
But
live, I think
is
is a
it
very
not? Aren't you doing? You're breaking people into doing exercises, and you're
correct.
not just delivering information. So if I'm say, okay, teaching calculus, right? I'm
Mhm.
saying, okay, this is how the math works, and then here's some problems. Go ahead and do it. It's not
Right.
necessary that you're with other people or coaches to break through.
Correct. No, correct. So, but I think a live component to launch is important. You asked like which was my sort of preference, or which way I think is going to be the best way, right? What's going to make the most impact? So, I think if we
For
could
the
do live
learner, for the
for
learner, forget about business. Yeah,
for the learner, for the
yeah.
learner. So we do live first, right? um, and then thereafter you follow up with virtual sessions, right? So it's not a combination of half the people on virtual and half the people live. It's a combination of doing live events and then layering in virtual events, right? So, for example, if we did like a 2-day session and then followed it up with the one on one coaching virtually, it works, right? Because that coaching session, right, in fact, is in some cases more impactful doing it one on one virtually than it would be doing it live, right? Just think about back in the day traveling for coaching, right? So that's how I think it's going to go. But back to all of this, I think the point of this whole conversation is it's really interesting that we're we're still going through this transition and change. And that's sort of what we were chatting about before, which is, it's not so much for me recognizing my delivery model, it's recognizing the change I need to go through as the business, the strategies I need to implement, the decisions I need to make, the decisions I haven't been making because I've been waiting for things to go back to what they were like before 2019. And that's what this year was for me. It was a year of waiting, like, okay, well, things are coming back live and we'll go back to all the traditional things that we did before that worked, right? We had this program, we would do it live, we would do it in Toronto, we would do this, we would do that, but it never flipped. Even though like things opened, that never flipped. What I've realized now is how we need to deliver it next year, which is a little bit of what we're talking about now, right? Which is what are we going to do to fucking kill it next year? And rise, make sure that this is not a year of survival. This is a year of thriving and
Yeah.
succeeding.
Interesting. So yeah, I'll share about so what I've been thinking about. So everything I do is virtual. I'm helping people with their LinkedIn. It's a lot of consulting up front, and then every Thursday I'm running, an hour to hour and 15 minutes hot seat breakdown, what's working, what's not, sharing new things that LinkedIn are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what there's two things that I really think about a lot in the last week. One is what stops a lot of my clients is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're successful, I mean, it can be an author or corporate leader. I mean, every one of my clients is a subject matter expert, and they've been doing it on average for 10 to 30 years. So, what stops them from following the system? The system works. Um, and I kind of got into some deeper conversations with some people, spending more time with them doing coaching to understand that, like, it's one thing for someone to say, like, I want to do it my own way, which I'm pretty good at telling them, listen, it's about time you comply. That's my word.
Right.
It's kind of a
Right.
bad word. I don't like comply. It's too forceful. But
Right.
like, you know, Deming, who rebuilt Japan and was one of the great systematic guys, was it's a system works. It's a failure. Use the system.
Right.
So, like, the answer is comply. But I
Right.
realize that it's more than that, because in order for people to feel comfortable putting themselves out there, it's not just out there. Okay, we are asking people to do videos twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking them to write 150 words. So that's a direct, when you write, it's a direct, people are going to judge you on your writing skills, on
Right.
your
Right.
video skills.
Right.
But the other part of it, that was, I know people hate selling, and no one likes to sell. No one wants to sell Z. But our
Correct.
outbound that we layer in, I realized that, it's not about that. It's fear of being judged. So I'm teaching people to go on someone's LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
and look at something cool, like if
Mm-hmm.
they, whatever, I don't know, they spent some time in Japan and so did you. That's relatability. So on your outbound, saying, "Hey, what was your favorite thing about Japan? I was there for a year. I went to my senior year in college there. Forgot most of my Japanese, but I loved Shibuya,
Mm-hmm.
which is a community right by the park in Tokyo."
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a great opener for LinkedIn.
Listen,
But,
I'll tell you, yeah. To that point, I just
okay,
got a message on LinkedIn, and it was like, "Hey, bud, I know this guy who you had on your podcast. He was also a client a few years ago. He's a good friend of mine. Love this, 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 this. Love to chat." I replied to him within a minute and a half, where 99% of them I don't. Right, and it was
yeah.
this guy. He was like, "Oh, this is our common denominator. This is our connection." Right, that's the personal sort of thing. And it takes a little bit of research, right? I think the other thing
But
you're
the
dealing
thing
with.
is, yeah, but let me just finish that and we'll go into your thing. But what I realized is, all my people are smart enough to do the research. And I know they know, because I said this over and over. But even sending that message, like the Japan one I just made up, I think there's some fear blocking, because no matter what, you're still putting yourself out there.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one big idea.
Yeah.
So what's you want to talk about
So
that? I'll talk about the second.
yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think the answer is you got to make it easy for people, right? So if it's already a block from an emotional standpoint, which is fear, right? Then all the things come in thereafter and why they can't do it. But that's a little bit of momentum. That's a little bit of like, kick them in the ass and keep pushing and, comply. Right. So I think that's okay. No, I think seriously, I think you need to push people to push them into that fear, right? Like let's challenge
Yeah.
that fear.
But
I
I think
think
I need a fear.
but I think the big thing that you're
Yeah.
dealing with, the big challenge you're dealing with is you're relying on people to take on the task of writing each post of 150 words, recording the video. The video might be a lot easier, but like now you're getting into the functional sides of things. So the question comes down to is how do you template that for them, right?
Well, that's what we did because so I have US based writers. They're
Right.
amazing now. I have a set of them and they write very well. And we know because when we put that on LinkedIn, it gets great views and engagement. I just contracted a great deal with a video production company. So I'm
Right.
able to go on and spend a half hour with someone at the beginning of the month and literally interview them on Pexar Square, eight problems, make sure that they're teaching. We're there doing it in 4K with Riverside.fm, which is great software. And then I just give it to the people. They chop it up into the eight. And if they want social media like Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, they'll even do 20 or 40 or 60. What do you call them? Shorts? What do you call those
Yeah.
things? The
Posts, social posts,
the little ones
selects.
with the frames and the colorful words.
Yeah.
So
Posts, reels, right?
reels, yeah,
Yeah.
reels and shorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do add, but I think what I was thinking about is I need to do maybe twice a year a
Hmm.
live component where like a
Correct.
long weekend
Correct.
because we have amazing people. We everyone knows each other. We come
Correct.
together and then we help build each of us better.
Do a mastermind. You know masterminds. You go to a ton of them. I'll do this with you. I haven't told you, but I'm launching a private members group. Same kind of exercise, like a group of people getting together, working and supporting each other through their issues, and it's going to be virtual. But to that point, if it actually builds into something, we'll do something more annually or twice a year type of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. So going
I'll,
back to because now how do we got distracted? No, we didn't. Because the point is we're talking about 2022 and like adjustments for 2023. It was my LinkedIn's been 100% virtual, but now I'm realizing that you know what? Like I think people need one or two touch points together.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about this for 2023 as an adjustment
Right,
because it's the new. That's what we're in right now.
right,
It's there. No one's figured it out. The bank said come back, and then don't come back. It's like chicken, and the
right.
employees
And
called
and
chicken.
and, and some industries like banks, I have a lot of banking clients or banks for clients, and it's virtual, right? I then have a manufacturing company which we will fly like we used to do to one of these sort of small little towns to do that work. Yeah, no, I get it. My big change for next year, my big focus, um, is lost it. I just had it. I was about to say it and I got distracted. Um, I'll come back to it in a second. But I think, oh, yes, my big focus is, and we were doing this right before the pandemic. This was the big plan for 2020 was expansion into the US, right? We've always been a US and corp. We've had US clients, but we've never emphasized our presence and our sales and our focus in the US, right? We've always just received that business. And now we're going to double down, right?
Double down in Miami because you're in Costa Rica. It's a 2-hour
Yeah,
flight, and
bro.
there's
Of
dude.
course.
It's like the second or third most bustling city for tech and for this and for that. Like it's really bustling.
That's it. We're going to make some sales phone calls and get some sales conferences out there. On that note, I have to go and teach or do team coaching with
Yes.
virtually with the sales team all over the US. So we got to bounce today, but this was a good little catch up and chat today. And for the audience, I hope you like this improv little conversation between Mike and I, sharing ideas as business owners and batting some things back and forth. We got a few upcoming guests over the next couple of weeks, which is going to be exciting.
Guests. That's a good thing because we've been having guests. So if you want to be a guest,
Mhm.
let Greg and I know. We've got an official process now that they got to go in. Da, 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 da. But we have good guests. And you're invited if you qualify. We'd love to
Yeah.
have you. And
Yeah.
well, it's for some of us, it is Thanksgiving coming up. So I want to wish anyone that's celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. It's an energy of being grateful and thankful. So even if you're in Costa Rica and you're Canadian and you never ate a turkey on the last Thursday of November,
Right.
and if you're vegetarian, have some broccoli and think of others.
Yeah, yeah. No, we'll do some sort of Thanksgiving dinner. And to yes, everyone else in the US, happy Thanksgiving. Stay happy, stay healthy, keep giving, keep being generous, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Talking Humans with Wits and Wise.
Over and out.